Good morning, everybody. How's it going? Good morning, Bones. How are you? Having a good day? Yeah? All right, cool. We're going to keep talking about the atmosphere today. All right, here we go. So, in our last video, we learned about what the atmosphere actually was. And we learned that it was four layers made up of different characteristics. And our main focus is going to be on the bottom layer called the troposphere. Okay, so what does the atmosphere actually do for us? Okay, because we said in the last video that the atmosphere actually hasn't been here very long. It's only been here for about 800 million years compared to the 4.6 billion years that the Earth has been here. So the atmosphere does a couple things for us. Number one, and probably most important, it supports life. Us. It supports us. Bones used to be you. I know you're just Bones now, but you had a nice life too. Um, it supports life by providing us with breathable gases and moisture. All right, that's very important. Again, remember the bottom layer of the atmosphere, which we call the troposphere, is the most dense part of our atmosphere because of our stack of pancakes theory. All the other layers are packed up on top, causing your bottom pancake, just like in a stack of pancakes, to be the most squished. And that's important because it squishes all of the oxygen that we need down into the bottom layer for us to be able to breathe, for our bodies to be able to function. It also keeps the most amount of moisture down here from evaporation from oceans and lakes, and it rains in the troposphere. And our bodies need water in order to survive. So, very important function of the atmosphere is that it helps us support life by giving us that oxygen and breathable gases and the moisture for our skin and the inside of our bodies. Okay, so it helps support life. Very important function. You definitely need to know that one. Okay. Um, the second thing it does is it protects life. Okay. Now, how does it protect us? It actually protects us in two different ways, which actually help us a lot. The first thing it does is it protects us from meteor impacts. Okay. So we now know that meteors fly throughout outer space, and sometimes these rocks, known as meteors, can get caught in the gravitational pull of the Earth and start flying towards Earth and actually crash into Earth. Now, most meteors just land in the ocean. We don't have to worry about it. But a majority of meteors don't even come close to the Earth because they actually burn up in um, in our atmosphere. This is what's known as our shooting stars, remember. Okay. If you think you see a shooting star, you're actually not seeing a shooting star. What you're seeing is a meteor burning up in our atmosphere. Okay. And it gets that nice little bright flash that goes across the sky. We learned that in our last unit. Another important thing that the atmosphere does for us is it protects us from ultraviolet radiation, okay, which is absorbed by our ozone layer. This is important. So the sun does keep us warm. We know that, okay? But too much of the sun, too much ultraviolet radiation is actually harmful for the earth. It's not only harmful for the earth because it will warm up too much, but it's harmful to us because it gives us skin cancer. That's why we put on so much sunblock when we go to the beach, we go outside in the summertime. We don't want extra ultraviolet radiation to cause us to get skin cancer and stuff like that. So the ozone layer, that part of the atmosphere, which part again? What part's the ozone layer located in, Bones? Do you remember? We got the troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere. What do you think? That's right. It's the stratosphere. The second layer of the atmosphere contains the ozone layer, and this is where a majority of ultraviolet radiation is absorbed to protect the Earth from its harmful rays. Now, the atmosphere also helps provide heat energy by absorbing a little bit of heat from the sun and keeps the heat in from the Earth. This is done with something called greenhouse gases. Okay, greenhouse gases are actually a good thing. Sometimes greenhouse gases get a bad rap, and because there's too much greenhouse gases and causes the earth to warm up, causes global warming, and we're going to get into that in a second. But the proper amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere actually benefit the earth. Okay, it keeps the earth at a nice constant temperature, which is our fourth function of the atmosphere. Is it helps maintain the earth at a constant temperature. Okay. So we need a certain level of greenhouse gases, such as water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, ozone, in our atmosphere in order for the Earth to be the proper temperature for us to live, for the trees to live, for the polar bears to live, and for life to be supported. Okay? The problem happens is when we get too many greenhouse gases built up in the atmosphere and the temperature of the Earth starts to increase too high, which we're going to talk about in a second. So Our main functions of the atmosphere, and what you have to remember is, number one, it supports life, okay? Number two, it protects life. Number three, it provides us with heat from our greenhouse gases, which are good things, not bad things. Greenhouse gases are good. They get a bad rap. Um, and it helps maintain a constant temperature here on Earth, which is important for supporting life. So all these kind of blend together. So that's what our atmosphere does for us every single day, okay? Every single year, every single generation, all right? So now, I said before that greenhouse gases are good, but sometimes greenhouse gases, we get too much greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and something bad happens. That's what's known as the greenhouse effect, okay? So what is supposed to happen here on Earth in order to maintain a nice, even temperature for us? Well, we see here we've got sunlight that comes down, okay? It hits the Earth, it warms up the Earth, and then what's supposed to happen is it gets reflected off the Earth and it's supposed to go back into outer space, okay? That's what's supposed to happen. Now, if you've ever been in a greenhouse, and this is where we get the name, the greenhouse effect. If you've ever gone shopping with your parents for flowers or garden stuff, and you go into a greenhouse, we know a greenhouse is very warm, okay? And this is where the idea of a greenhouse effect comes from. The greenhouse effect is when the surface of the heat that comes in from the sun and the solar radiation gets trapped by the Earth's surface. It gets trapped, okay? And it doesn't escape like it's supposed to in order for the Earth to cool off. So what happens is when there's too much of a buildup of greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide comes from pollution and burning fossil fuels and burning smokestacks and the exhaust coming out of cars that use gas. All of that type of pollution and the burning of fossil fuels and the release of extra carbon dioxide into the atmosphere without being able to change it back into oxygen due to deforestation and other reasons, these extra solar radiation gets trapped in the Earth. So what happens is the sunlight comes down, it reflects off the Earth, and it tries to leave, but it can't. Too many greenhouse gases, mainly carbon dioxide, okay, traps it in, so it starts to reheat the Earth again. And then it tries to leave, and it can't. So it reheats the Earth again, and then it gets trapped again, and then it reheats the Earth again. Okay, and this happens over and over again until that extra heat can actually escape back out into the outer space. So the greenhouse effect is when carbon dioxide and other atmospheric gases, known as greenhouse gases, okay, too many of them in the atmosphere trap the heat within the Earth and keep the Earth too warm, which causes global warming, which is causing climate change, which is causing the North Pole and the South Pole to melt, which is causing habitats to change, migration patterns to change, and a lot of stuff that we will continue to talk about for the rest of the year. So please remember, greenhouse gas is good, greenhouse effect, bad, okay? Because the greenhouse effect is the rising of the Earth's temperature, which we don't want, all right? Because it's changing weather patterns, it's changing migration patterns, it's changing a lot of things here on Earth. Now, some other things that are happening, or the way the Earth is protected, is it protects us from meteors. Now, sometimes a meteor will come through and it will crash into the Earth, okay, because it doesn't burn up in our atmosphere. We don't get that cool looking shooting star, which is really just a burning meteor in our atmosphere. And most meteors, when they hit the Earth, they will actually just land in the ocean. We'll never know. Sometimes meteors will hit land. So here's a meteor crater that was created in Arizona. Okay, it's pretty big. You can see here's a road leading up to the crater. Here's the parking lot and the visitor center. So you can see how big this actually is. Okay, they're not always this big, but this is a cool example of one. All right, another problem in the atmosphere, which our atmosphere usually protects us from, is the growing hole in the ozone layer. Due to pollution, due to the release of burning of fossil fuels and stuff, the ozone layer has actually been growing. And it's growing bigger and bigger every single year. The ozone layer, once we get holes in the ozone layer, what that does, it lets in extra solar radiation, extra ultraviolet radiation, which in turn heats up the Earth even more, which contributes even more to the greenhouse effect. And with extra ultraviolet radiation comes in, we get higher cases of skin cancer because the sunlight is too intense. It's not phased out by our ozone layer because the ozone layer is starting to disappear. And the hole in the ozone layer has been growing and growing and growing over the past few hundred years. Can we prevent it? Sure. We have to really take a look at how we implement green technologies so we don't pollute the atmosphere and we don't burn as many fossil fuels in the future. And we can start to slow down the growing holes in the atmosphere to protect us from the too much solar radiation and ultraviolet radiation that is coming into the Earth and hitting the Earth's surface. Okay, so those are some functions and some problems that we have in the atmosphere that we're dealing with. And I hope you enjoyed. We're going to keep talking about it in the future.